My Natural Resource 484 case study interview details the process of transition from a traditional agriculture feeding system, such as feedlots or confined animal operations, to managed rotational grazing. The interviewee was Teal Fyksen, Grazing Specialist for Golden Sands Resource Conservation and Development Department. GrassWorks is the grazing management outreach organization for Wisconsin. Grazing started roughly 15 years ago in the state. In the early 90s, a combination of resource professionals and farmers saw value in grazing. These initial areas had one professional and one producer working hand in hand. There are two types of agriculturalists who transition into grazing: those seeking inspiration through financial and ecological benefits, and those who are desperate. The University of Wisconsin-Madison estimates that 23% of Wisconsin farms are rotationally grazed. Realistically, Teal feels more like 10% of farms practice rotational grazing. Economics are the bottom line for dairy and beef producers. If practices are not economical, they will not follow. It should be understood that grazing land is harvested more intensely than row crops. Many farmers don't follow this because there is no tangible good being produced. There are many environmental benefits associated with grazing, but let it be known that these benefits are difficult to determine because they are heavily affected by the soil type and management of the site. Nevertheless, several overall benefits have appeared, including building organic material at a rate of roughly 1% per year, decreased erosion rates to around a half ton per acre per year, allowable soil loss in many soils, which is unsustainable, is 5 tons per acre per year. Phosphorus levels in the soil are not an issue because little soil is lost to erosion. Animal waste numbers are tied directly to land base, so levels of organic waste are disposed of naturally. This system mimics natural systems most effectively. High infiltration rates, limited compaction, and deeper and denser rooting structures appear in grazing operations. The Onan Farm Management Intensive Grazing Plan is designed to transition 43.3 acres of land in the town of New Hope in Portage County to rotational grazing. The plan includes a description of the implementation area, livestock summary, required infrastructure, including fencing, lanes, and water lines, a list of management objectives, recommended stocking rates, areas of environmental concern, consequences of management, forage production numbers, and a cost estimation. When a farmer commits to the transition, they are added to Teal's mailing list, informing them of educational opportunities, pasture walks, management plans, grazing-related material and forums, and a phone line for questions. In the first year of implementation, Teal will visit the farm typically 4 times, fielding questions and observing the current conditions as he walks the pasture. A transitional farmer is also given the Beginning Grazer's Guide, the most comprehensive compilation of professional articles and guides in the state of Wisconsin, provided through the GrassWorks organization. The Onan Farm looks at supplying feeding grounds to 80 dairy cows. Implementation includes perimeter fencing, interior fencing, a watering system, temporary fencing supplies, a well, pasture plantings, and a seasonal watering facility. The farm currently has pasture on 82 grazed acres. Roughly half the costs associated with the plan comes from labor of implementation. Typically, a farmer comes to the RC&D requesting information on cost share programs. A common scenario appears where a farmer wants, say, 50 acres of fencing to be cost shared. To qualify for this, a rotational grazing plan is required for the area. Many farmers back out in this situation. In many situations, Teal explains, it is better to provide the background information to the farmer and give them the ability to make the right decision. Teal warns farmers who have transitioned not to overgraze, as it may jeopardize any cost share or incentive payment agreement established. Generally, transitions go well. The transition process is not easy because farmers are expected to learn a different system that poses all new challenges. Providing support to farmers in the first year of transition is very important in them understanding the long-term success the plan can achieve. Teal has dealt with operations that have gone belly up to those that have now serve as flagship businesses for others. Hybrid systems have appeared where particular aspects from both traditional operations and rotational grazing are applied. The success of a project largely depends on the underlying soil type of an area. The Onan farm is comprised of Rothschild series soils, considered prime farmland and suitable for pasture and rotational grazing. There is a general understood rule of thumb in the transition process. Hayfield transitions require interseed, legumes, and grasses. Row crop transitions require heavy seeding with legumes and grasses. And pasture transitions, which are considered the easiest, require interseed legumes for nitrogen fixation. Teal suggests for the Onan farm that dairy cows rotate every 12 hours. Paddock size may vary throughout the grazing season. The general rule of size of the paddock is so that animals will graze half of the available forage and leave half as residue. To achieve this, a beginning grazing height of 8 to 10 inches is suggested. Also, an exit paddock height of 3 to 4 inches is suggested. The 43.3 acres of pasture under proper management should produce roughly 130 tons of forage annually. This will provide enough forage for about 2.5 months of grazing for 90 to 95 animal units. Winter feed will need to be harvested elsewhere. The assumed intake of dry matter is 4% of the animal's body weight per day. Teal recommends with all its plans that a feed budget be created to help manage and fine-tune the herd's time in the pasture. Thank you for listening to my discussion on grazing.